and they mixed it up, so they have to redo them again. And now everything that has to do with delivery is very long. Like I don't have no more ink in my printer, so the shop is waiting. Everybody's waiting for deliveries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought sandals online, and I guess I'll have them for Christmas.
What a change from what we were used to, that it was like there tomorrow. I'm sure they'll get back to it, but yeah, it'll be a little while.
Or we knew exactly which shop to go to, the shop.
Yeah.
I don't really care about shopping online. I like to go and see the texture, and I like textures, I like linen, I like cotton.
Fresh.
Okay. Yes.
Awesome.
So we're going to go through the questions.
Yes. So I will start with like a little introduction like I had there.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we'll just jump right into the questions. I wanted to ask you before we start if there were any questions that made you uncomfortable from the get-go, so I can remove them. Maybe not.
Well, no, nothing that made me. But there's some where I was wondering if I would not answer them. Like if I don't answer them at exactly where the question is that okay? If naturally it comes, like there was one where I don't remember.
And I'll tell you honestly, like this is a baseline of questions, because what I really like to do is I like to work from here, but I don't like to stick to this because, for example, your story might take us in a more powerful direction, and I can't anticipate that. So I always like, so when I try and ask the questions, I'm probing to get something juicy. And this is just for me to go back to in case something, like to steer us on if we go down a tangent, bring us back.
Okay.
But if you do bring up something.
Yeah. And you intend to do it just one go, no cut between questions? Like if it's possible to pause at one point?
Yeah, of course. I would just say that of course we can always pause, like, because this is not like a live interview, so it doesn't really matter. The guy that chops the interviews for me can always like take the pause out, so it's no problem. But I will say that if you do want to pause, just give it a second before you. So a lot of people go like this. They finish. So let's say I finish the question. So this is how no, and then they're like, and then they automatically stop with the pause. But it doesn't give the guy enough time to cut it, and then when the next part needs to start, you're kind of like already. So it's important that when you. So what I'm trying to say is when it's important when you finish the question, just like sit for a little bit.
Okay, very good, very good.
You know what I mean? Because then it's easy for him to cut it.
Okay,
otherwise it becomes a bit tricky.
So. I take my glass of water instead of coffee.
Zupa. Okay, yeah, so if there's ever any moment, I'm actually just reviewing the questions again right now.
Okay, yes, let's review. Okay, so the first is light on my work, my family, my environment. And that's why there was a question at the end is, when I left my family, and why did I leave my organic family, and it was kind of, I was wondering if these two, if ever I do it in one, I will see, but I will try to make it short. Okay.
Do you want me to remove it?
No, let's figure it out. Let's figure it out as we go. Let's go.
Okay, cool. All right. So I'm just going to give him a sign that this is where it starts.
Yeah.
And we're pressed record. Yes, we have. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so here we go. Helen, I am thrilled to have you here with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you. Yes.
Today, we'll be taking a look at family. So this is exciting for me because there's so many preconceived notions and ideas around what family is. So I really look forward to hearing your perspective from having traveled the world and spent well over with over 145 families. So I'm sure that the concept of family is well integrated in your life and project. So I'd like to give everyone a quick recap before we go further on your work. So could you please shed some light on your work and what you were intending to accomplish?
Yes, okay. And today you'll have the look on the family from the bachelor point of view.
That's amazing.
Yes. And so I was working in advertising in Paris. And I was working with very good communicators, and they were saying that that they were saying they were good communicators, and I always wonder why I did not know humanity. I would be there in the evening and try to imagine my life in another country and realize I was completely ignorant. I could not imagine myself living in another country. So I decided I would present humanity to humanity. There was a communicator missing. And so I wanted to present. I wanted us, all of us, to know who we live with and where we are on this planet. So I decided to present humanity. And then how would I do that? And that was the great question about how I would do that. And I could not figure out, because finally what I wanted is to look at, I wanted to discover the soul of women, of men and children. And I thought that the soul, you see it through the eyes. So I wanted to get near people. And as I'm a bachelor, I couldn't. Suddenly, I asked my friend Jean. I said, Jean, how do I put a man, a woman, and a child and children in the same picture? Mm. And he looked at me like if I was stupid, and the only way only friends can do it, you know. And he said, Hélène, the family. I said, oh, what a great idea. So I decided I would present humanity through one day in the life of a family in every country of the world. Because if you want to get to know children, you have to be there in the family. If you want to get up in the morning with a child, you nearly have to get up in the morning with the entire family. And that's how it came. And now I have lived in families in 113. I've lived in 118 countries, but I think I lived in families in 113 of them. So I have a look on the family and children and women that is quite unique. But it was always humanity I was looking for. You know, I never wanted to become a specialist of the family. So there's many of them specialists of the family, but I have an outlook on it.
That's amazing. No, and you know, just because you mentioned humanity, how do you define humanity? Just so that people, because I find that it's a term that people bring up a lot. So just so that we understand what you meant when you want to introduce humanity to humanity, what did you mean with that word?
Well, the thing is, if you want to invite all if you invite all the families of the world, because my concept was, I will go in every families of the world. And at that time, it was only books, you know, the mean to do it. And I will bring the families in all the families of the world. If you invite all the families of the world, you invite all of humanity, right? So for me, humanity, that's why for me, the families was a wonderful tool, because if I could bring all the families of the world, in every families of the world, I would present humanity. Naturally, I always think of all the orphans, all the children that are alone, that don't have families. I think
Mm.
of them also in humanity. But I think is saying that if you invite all the families of the world, you invite all humanity into your
That's
meeting.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think it gives us a good foundation from which to build on this topic with. So I know that, so I'd like to first always define, like, what is the family environment that you came from? Because that always helps us build some context as to kind of where we'll go in terms of like the family models that you saw thereafter and some of the dynamics that you experienced. So what kind of family dynamic do you come from, would you say? Environment.
Yeah, I have the impression there is no family dynamic in my life very much. I was born in the north of, in Abitibi, in the north of the province of Quebec. And my parents worked in lumberjack camps from the time I was 4 years old. But I was born in a rural area, very lonely place where I was born. And my father did not want to be alone in a lumberjack camp, so he brought my mother along, and they put all the children in boarding school. So I spent some time with them alone in the bush, the forest, but we call it the bush, right? Excuse me. And so at 6 years old, they put me in boarding school. And from 6 years old, I saw my family 3 times a year.
Wow.
So family. And my mother worked so hard. She cooked for 200 men, you know. And when I was in boarding school, there was 200 girls on the table. So for me, life was like 200 men on one side and 200 girls on the other side. And they never met. And and then we were educated by nuns, so naturally the nuns never wanted or never talked about the fact that we would put them together, right? So for me, and at 15, it was too much. For me to be in boarding school, I was like for me it had become a prison because I'm a free spirit, and so I had to get out of there. And then my father did not want me to do what I wanted to do, so he stopped giving me money. So at 15, I had to figure out. I had a year in front of me to figure out what I would do, and that was it. I was by myself. So I've been living alone since I'm 15 years old. Wow. And so why naturally I choose the family. But for me, it was, naturally, if I sit on a couch at the psychiatre, they will find reasons to study me. If anybody wants to study me, I invite them to call. And so for me, it was humanity. And then I started looking at the families, and so it's quite special because. I think you don't look at them, at a family the same way when the concept was not so much there in your life, you know?
Yeah, which is so powerful, because then now when you look at family and through your work, how have you come to define what family is?
Yeah. Oh, you have you wrote to me the dictionary definition.
Yeah.
Of that it's people under the same roof, of the tribe.
Yeah,
right?
It says there, a group consisting of 2 parents and their children living together as a unit and all the descendants of a common ancestor, which is the technical definition. So I'm curious to actually hear how you define that.
I think it would be interesting to have all the definition of the dictionary through ages, you know? Because everybody's in 1994, there was the International Year of the Family. And then everybody started to ask me, Hélène, what is the family for you? What is the family for you? And I had started this project, but I had not prepared an answer for that question, you know? I wanted to present humanity. I was not figuring out what the family was for me. So I was I did not know. I did not have any answer to that question. So I started asking other people that question. So in Chinese, it's a sign. So you have the roof, you have the men under the roof, and you have the pig under the men. what does it mean? Is it economics? You know, is it that we're going to feed a family? Is it, what does it mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Then you have in Latin, the root of the word family comes from the same root as the word slave and servant.
Wow.
So the family was the master and his slaves, right? That was the family.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So and in Arabic you have two words. You have the extended family, and you have the nuclear family, and the root of the nuclear family is happiness of the word, you know. So that's very I suppose when you grow up with a word, you know, where it comes from might make a difference. And then I asked an African woman, and there's many language in Africa. I asked, what is the word family in your language? And she says, we don't have that word. So that's very interesting. If you don't have the word, do you have a family, you know? And so she said, no, we don't have, we have houses. So she says, you have the blood house, you know? This one you cannot do anything about it. You know, there's always,
you're born into it. It's like,
you're born into it. There's always Christmas to remind you that you have one.
yeah.
Right. And then you have the your life house. That's the people you invite into your life, the friends, the children of your friends, the people you invite. They come, they go. Some of them stay all along the life, but there's not very many of them that make the road through life, but some of them do. And then you have the community house. So you need to go to the city, and you say, Joseph, can you keep my sheep? I need to go to the city. And Joseph says, don't worry, I'll keep your sheep. And you go to so that's a community house.
Yeah.
When she said that to me, I said, yes, you just given me my definition of the family and how I live my family. And I thought it was very, very modern as a definition. And I always take joy when I speak in especially high schools to teenagers, that when they're at an age where they would throw away the family, I always like to tell that story, because we have 3 houses. And it freed me, because I realized that the house that was very important in my life was my life house, is the quality of my friends. You know, when you're 15 years old, when I see 15 years old living by themselves, I nearly cry, because I find them so small to live by themselves and take the decision of their life, you know, and no guidance. And so I was very lucky to have wonderful friends to choose. So that was instinctive, but I did choose wonderful friends, good friends, good head, good thinking.
Yeah.
And if I would have stayed in my blood house, you know, I was the baby. And we were only 5, you know, but it was the time where all the aunties had 15 kids, 12 kids. And so here in Quebec, so we were at 5, a very small family. But I was a baby, and my mother had 200 men to feed. So, and so with my sibling, I was like, I felt I was never good enough. I would never, there was no place for me, and there was just too much, you know. I think after 4 kids, it's too much for any woman, you know. Some of them, I remember, and one woman, she had 5 boys, and she says, oh, I'd love to have 12, you know, but we cannot afford that anymore. So there's very few women, I think, that have that, you know, that would make 20 if they could. They just love it, you know, educating. And that has nothing to do with culture. I think it's something inside of you, you know. So maybe only these women should have, you know, children. Anyway, And now I think at the end of my life, the community house might be very useful for me. Maybe I should go more. I feel like I'm attracted to the community house, but I'm not a community person. The people that give all their life to the community. So you have to know in which house you are, and when to rest in one, and what you can tell in one and not in the other. And you learn things in one house that the others will never, in the other house, will never understand,
Yeah.
But it's kind of nice to know you have these three houses to live in. So that's my definition of the family.
Actually, that's so beautiful, because I think this broadens it really broadens the concept of family, because I find that family can come both as a virtue and sometimes with a bit of pain, as in like you said, you don't always choose. And I also had, conflict in my family, and sometimes emotions that come with that, like at certain points I felt abandonment or guilt, or because I wasn't maybe as loyal to my family as I thought. So I'm curious what you think in terms of, and from an advice perspective, what you think this definition could really open up for women and around the concept of family, because a lot of us feel like that might be the only way, is to stay within our genetic family. So I'm curious to see if how in more detail, how you've navigated that, and possibly what that opens up for not just other women, but also.
I think the loyalty we mostly have for the parents and not for the sibling.
It's very true.
When both parents, when your second parents die, your mother dies, and then your father dies, and then you're not a child of nobody, right? And when your two parents have died, there is a personnage. What is that in English? A persona that dies.
Yeah.
Because they see you one way, and it seems like they cannot change the way they see you all your life. Yeah. So when you're 50 years old and your father says, "That's my baby," well, you say, "Okay, okay, Dad, if that's what you want," But for the sibling, suddenly you feel there's no loyalty in keeping that persona alive, to please them.
Yeah.
And when we hear women speaking of the pain, that is something we have in common. We're all sisters, Men are very good to say, "Oh, that's my brother," but you never hear women presenting themselves saying, "Hey, that's my sister, that's my sister." But they're all sisters. There's nothing easier than sit in the market with a woman, and start talking about everything, about the food and the recipes and the babies and and the fact that you're going to have your periods tomorrow and whatever. Everything is so easy to speak about women. And when we start together and speak about the pain we have to grow as a woman, we realize how the family has so, put us down, in not helping us. Sometimes I'm jealous of someone that, ends up in a family that make sure everybody rises up equally, the boys and girls. And but that is a privilege. It's nearly a privilege you find in the world. So I find that some people, they have to leave their parents. They have to leave that house, the blood house, if they want to grow. Because that house will not make them grow. And sometimes, and yesterday, I was talking to a friend who has a son who's going to be 30, they're still home. And I said, "What are you going to do? When is he going to get out?" She says, "Well, I've been thinking that maybe I have to sell the house." So he gets out, so also parents have sometimes to, go up, pull themselves away from their children. So family, when we say, "Oh, it's the best place to be in life," well, I'm not sure. When we see now with the confinement that the brutality for children and women has gone up, then you say, "Are you sure the family is the greatest place to be?" Then So that's why I thought that the three houses were kind of nice, because you can go to the other house if something goes wrong. And there's a story that just comes in, I should be like a cartoon with little bubbles coming out of my head.
Yeah, and then it's all the thoughts.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I have a story about, I don't know if I have the time for a story though, about choosing a woman, in a society where they have many women. And this African guy, after a conference, asked me if, he said, I think after I heard you, I think I'm going to go home and divorce. I said, oh, what did I say? So we sat down under a tree, and he said, I was away in France working for the railroad station. I would sleep under the bridges, send the money home. And then one day I got a message from my father saying, son, I choose the wife for you. So it's time to come home. And so he said, I went home and I married, and now I have 2 children. But he said, there's a problem. She's mean with the children. What do you think I should do? Should I divorce, or should I take a second wife? So, wow. Yeah. I'm a good coach.
So wait, what did you say?
So I thought a little bit, because what would I answer to that? And then he kept on, and in reality, he held me. He says, the thing he says is, if I divorce, she's alone. Her parents are dead. She has one brother who I have to feed because he's so lazy. So if I divorce her, she will be on the street. And as he came from the border of Mali and Mauritania, and that's quite the desert, So visually, I imagined a woman alone in the desert, And so, in my head, I said, this guy's a nice guy, He doesn't want to put a woman on the street. So I said, I think you should take a second wife. Choose one that sings in the morning. Choose someone that's really, really soft, that you can feel she loves children. And then her children, your 2 children, will know that there's two kind of people in this world. There's might be the mean ones, but there's the very nice ones. And they will have a shoulder to go and cry,
Yeah.
And
wow, that's powerful, because it's true. Instead of like cutting it off, you get the contrast, and in contrast, you get clarity. So it's beautiful. The kids can have perspective. Wow.
Yeah. So I had my cultural shock by myself after, and I said, Ivonne, you just advised a guy to take a second wife.
You're like, oh my gosh, I would have never done that. Yeah. That's amazing. So actually, sorry, go ahead.
So it depends where you are, right? It depends where you are.
And actually, that brings me to the next question, which I wanted to understand a little bit about some of the family models and dynamics that you experienced traveling. Perhaps we don't have time to cover all of them, but some of the ones, maybe 1 or 2 that you were, I guess, the most surprised by, that families functioned this way, or that the dynamics were so different to perhaps what we would be used to in like North America or Europe, in the Western world, let's say.
Can I take a minute to answer that?
Yeah.
I go to my notes, okay?
No problem.
The family models you experience, right?
Yeah, family models, dynamics, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
I think the only one I did not experience is the people where the women have many husbands. So I think I have not experienced that. I have experienced many lovers, but not a society where women have many husbands. And but I have experienced tribal family, extended family, nuclear family. And then there is society, matrilineaire societies that I have experienced. and arranged marriages, and then there's the arranged marriages compared to the love marriages. And in Fiji, I was at one point sitting with the young couple, the oldest son in the family, and he had a wife, and it was arranged marriages by telephone and everything, and they had like a 2-3 years old child. And then they started talking to me, and they said, now there's people marrying for love. We'd like to try that. I mean, I'm sitting there with a man and a woman and their child, and they're telling me they want to try love, like if it was a new car or a project.
Yeah, let's just go get this. Yeah.
Yeah, let's try that. And actually, sometimes I think we should bring Hollywood to court, because they in the movies where they have brought all this kissing and all this love affairs and everything, they have brought that all over the world, and they have questioned all the people's feelings and cultures and everything. So I sat with that couple, and I said, do you like each other? Is she good? Is he okay? And then they started talking, and she said, yes, he's really a great guy, and he's very nice with the child, and he takes good care, and everything is fine. And then he started, and he says, yes, she's really, and it was in Fiji, but it was Indian descent, old tradition, in these, from 400 years back, and the father had gone to see a brother in California, and when he came back, he says, we're so backwards. He said, now he told his daughter-in-law, now you can talk, because traditionally the daughter-in-law would go into the kitchen and not say a word for the rest of her life, right? And suddenly they told her, you can talk. And and she talked, and she would listen to the radio all day in the kitchen. So she was the one who had the knowledge of the world, and and then she's that was fascinating. And so the man, her husband, he said, oh, she's really nice. She's a nice mother. She's a little expensive with the spices, because she does really good cooking, but she wants spices from all over the world, and she's a bit expensive on the spices, but she's very good. And so suddenly they were telling me, how they enjoyed themselves, how they liked each other. Finally, they loved each other,
Wow.
Except
yeah, go ahead.
So that's about the time I said we should bring Hollywood to court.
But it's true, because I find that Hollywood has painted a picture like this. They call it the impossible dream, I think, in many contexts, like this impossible dream of this family that's perfect, that's functional, that there's never a wrong moment. And you're right, Hollywood has really kind of painted that image as well, with love and many other topics. That you're absolutely right. So I'm curious to see, in all these like models and dynamics that you did experience, was there ever a common thread that allowed for families to feel more functional or less functional than others, ones that allowed for more love and more growth, or it didn't allow, or it was like very different?
Well, I think there's something about family life. For me, when I say it's a tool, it was really wonderful because it doesn't underline the similarities, right? Right away, it underlines the similarities. And a baby that cries at 2:00 in the morning in a house where everybody is sleeping, you suddenly everybody's finds he's a little pain, and so there's no culture there. There's no ease, it just pisses everybody off at 2:00 in the morning. and so those, all the daily, you get up in the morning and you there's breakfast, and then you start the kids going to school, and so suddenly you go from one family to the other, and then it's the similarity. And then when you here, for example, you sit with the mother, and she starts talking about her children, and this one is that way, and this one is that way, and it's like the same vocabulary, They talk about their children in the same way. The description of a human being, Okay, this one he talks all the time, and this one is shy, and this one is so, and this one is so. It's always the same words. And even gossip is about the same. When you sit on the balcony and you see the village go by, it's about talking about the neighbors. So it's all the similarities. The differences is a lot about tradition, about what you have learned, what your parents will, we think of Malala. Malala. We think of Malala, and we think of, I always think of her father, a father who defended her, who accompanied her through a society where tradition wanted her differently. And so that is an example of how a family can be different in a society. And also the fact that I find that in many, many societies where there's traditions, and it's always the teenagers that start changing. I find that when teenagers do not understand the traditions, it's time for the traditions to go. And if the older people do not bend to the will of their young people, there's going to be a clash. They're going to go away.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, but I think that if there was justice in this world, equality, justice, everything would be fine. There would still be an immigrant in every family. There's always one that, sometimes I look at them, and at 4 years old, I would say, that one's going to go, He's going to go. He needs the world. He needs a horizon. He needs the road. Sometimes you feel at 4 years they would go and never turn back, turn their head, because they're attracted to the big world. And I think that the family should always help that one to go and say, okay, we'll help you to go, but please come back and tell us about what you've learned, And because that's what but some people are very happy at home, never going anywhere. And some children they will do exactly the same recipe as mama did and live the way mama did. So you have all that in the family. That's where the similarities are also,
Beautiful.
Yeah. But when there's love, that's
the key ingredient, right?
Well, yes. And that's really, really, you open the door. I open the door, and I know there is love. It's just so energy coming to you, And
it's beautiful.
In China, in the north of China, in the caves, there was arranged marriages. And so one day the family of the man comes and present him to the family of the girl, and the parents have arranged the marriage. And she said, I was very, very nervous, I knew they were coming and everything. Suddenly they knock on the door, they open the door, he comes in, we looked at each other and we fell in love.
Wow.
Isn't that
beautiful? Yeah. That just gives me shivers.
So then you say, thanks, Mama. Thank you, Mama, for choosing this guy for me, And so they were in love. They had they had 3 kids, and they had 3 girls on top of that. No, they had 2 girls and 1 boy. And that's why they had 3, because they were in China, and they were not allowed for 3, but they said, never mind. And she said, I'm an artist. I knew I can do anything. I said to myself, I can make a son,
Yeah, that's so true. Wow.
And he said,
I'm an artist.
I'm an artist. I can make a boy.
That's amazing. Oh my goodness. So then when we look at this, because, sometimes I think, like you said, in the Arab world, the word meant happiness. So there's a lot of sometimes, I don't want to say baggage, but there's a lot involved in family. Sometimes it feels like the next step. you know, it's like, we have to have families. Obviously we're women, we must have families. And I know that context around that is changing, and I'm happy because it actually brings more options, obviously to our life, and it opens the conversation. So I'm curious because this is beautiful what you just shared. So I'm curious to understand, like, what would you say, or how would you advise a woman that's like navigating, doesn't really know whether they want a family, but given your definition, kind of that broadens it for her. But that's because you're also a woman that, you know, chose not to have a family intentionally as well, and has accomplished incredible things. So navigating this world with this context of family, how would you orient them?
Well, naturally, it all depends. You know, women are very stuck with what the sentence, what will the neighbors say? You know,
Yeah.
I have to marry because all my girlfriends are married. I have to have a child, or, you know, because all my girlfriends are telling me it's time to have a child because they have a child and I don't. So I would advise, forget about that. I think I did not feel I would be a good mother. You know, I must say I thought I would be too egoistic. In my head, it was like, you make a child, you give your life, you know? So, and also I came from a generation, there's many women in my generation who don't have children. And because we came from large families, you know, 5, 15, 10, 12 kids. So it's a scenario we did not want. You know, and it was just at the time of the quiet revolution, where suddenly we were saying no, and we wanted men to change, and we wanted the whole society, you know, because I came from a society where you had to marry virgin also, you know, and so it was never mind. I did not want that, and I said no to that. Now, I know many societies in the world where women feel like they should say no to that. And that if you feel like you cannot love a child, please don't make a child, you know? We don't have a problem of population. I mean, we're not in the ages where people needed population just to work and feed, and because children were working, you know, people were making, at the beginning, people were making children because they need hands in the field. And so why do we make children, right? Why do we make children? And for me, the beautiful families is where there is love, that you can feel, and where all the family, first, where the men and women take a pleasure educating their children. You know, it's like bringing them up, and together makes a big difference. And so for me, if you feel you cannot give your life to raising children to be better citizens, I would say, if you don't feel that, don't feel bad about not having any children. So if you feel you're a mother, you know, you're a mother. You know, I'd like to have 12. If you feel that very, very strongly, go ahead. But don't do it to please your girlfriend, you know, first. Yeah. And the society. But some people have very, very difficulty, you know, in some societies. Like the parents, the mothers and the fathers will push them into it. They will throw them away from the environment and the community, and no. So what can I tell them, you know? Take the train, you know?
Get out.
So I feel very sorry, but there's still many societies that still need to change, you know? That was the pleasure of our freedom here.
Yeah. But you know, it's interesting because I watched a woman speak recently about how, you know, we all think that in these underdeveloped countries, perhaps the roles are a bit stronger, and mind you, they are, but the expectations don't actually change so much. It's she says that, you know, women, we as like modern westernized women, we look at them and we think, oh, they're not even flying. But sometimes we northern women are also just getting above the ground, and we think we're flying, but really we haven't given ourselves that true choice. Like you're talking about, that real feeling in our you know, in our gut to say, okay, I'm just going to own up to the fact that, you know, family is not a thing for me, and that's okay. And feeling worthy, not feeling lonely, not feeling like you're anything less than people who choose to have family. So that's so powerful. So actually, I want to conclude a little bit on this last question before we give our listeners where they can find more about you. And that would be, family has been the foundation of society, or considered to be the foundation of society, for so long. So, and I think more and more couples, and even myself, I can see that it's kind of it's moving away from that model where family is, having children is something you just do. So I'm curious to see, what would be your opinion in terms of what you think the new foundation for society could be, or where you see a true foundation being built, where women do feel like they have the choice and they're happy. And maybe this is not something you've thought of, but I'm curious to see if you have thought.
Well, now we have here what we call the extended family, right? Not the extended family, the reconstructed family, right?
Yeah.
So that's a new, the family has always changed, you know, it came from the master and his slave to what it is today. And now the reconstructed family is really, really a reality, because it's over 50% divorce. And here we are in a society where the law is for the man and woman. So mostly when you divorce, it's going to be automatically 1 week the man's going to get the child, and the other week the woman's going to get the child. So it's kind of become a reality, you know. So it became at the beginning, naturally, when a child went to school and he was the only one in the class with the divorced children, with divorced parents, he felt bad. Today it's like a normal thing. So that is the way. But that means that first the law has to be there for you, you know. Like if in a society where you cannot divorce, even if they say you can, but they make it so hard on you that you cannot divorce, well, they still have work to do. So what is going to happen to our society? So, and I'd love to be able to go back to some of the regions, because when I was in Asia, all the parents were from arranged marriages. All the parents in my books of the East, Southeast Asia and the Pacific were from arranged marriages. They all said they would leave their children choose. They will let their children choose. So it would be very interesting to go back and say, what has happened with the choice? You know, was it better when you choose, or before? You know what? So that would be very, very wonderful to go back to see that. And so that is a change, right? Us is the change of the divorce and the 1 week, 1 week. But some of the parents love this 1 week, 1 week, right? Because the week they don't have the children, they say, "Oh my gosh, I'm free," you know. And so it's another reality, and it's also a reality of the men. For example, in Quebec, 83% of the men take their paternity leave when they have a baby. Only 20% in Canada. That and what happens? The men, they fall in love with their kids. And when that happens, then at 5 o'clock, they want to go home because they have people to love, right? So they don't want to stay in the office until 10 o'clock at night to please the boss, right? So the lawyer firms and the big firms, you know, when they see these young men that want to leave at 5 o'clock, a woman that leaves at 5 o'clock, that's fine. But a man that wants to leave at 5 o'clock, that's, you know, no. So the paternity leave is really something that changes and if the men change, then the whole society changes. Okay,
it's true.
So the woman, they change the man, but it is the men who bring the kind of the last drop of change, you know, because if you leave your child for 1 week with the man, with his father, well, his father's good take good care, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the man has to be willing for the change of the society. And when I saw in Scandinavia is that they were very strict when they decided to change, you know, like in one of the countries of Scandinavia, the woman said, I raised my husband. So, usually you raise a child, you don't raise a husband, you know, usually he's raised.
Yeah,
I hope
that should be done. Yeah.
It should be done, you know.
Yeah.
So maybe a good family is when the man comes in and is raised already, you know. And
That's amazing.
you don't have to do that job on top of that. And so the role of the man is changing. And if he's enjoying and loving his children and loving coming home to them, then makes a big difference family and society, you know, and you can change the society. And the other thing that was changed, here in Quebec was the grandparents. Because when the grandparents had 15 children who had 15 children, they didn't even know the names of their grandchildren, right? They just know it was theirs, you know, like
So true.
also it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. But, you know, they would have to say 15 names before naming the good one. So now you have grandparents who have 2 kids, who have only 1 child or 2 child, you know, so they have time. They have time for them. They have time to spoil them. They have, and that brings another dynamic of the society. And the grandparents today, they are more educated. You know, they can really participate.
In the raising.
In the raising and the knowledge and the discovery, the intellectual development of their grandchildren, bringing them to theater and.
So actually, if I understand correctly, what you mean to say, I think the biggest change is that first extended families became more established. So this is something that's become more of a norm. So divorced families coming together from different, you know, kids being joined to other families, and so that concept of like 2 different families that now join and create a new family. And so, and with that, you said the second piece is also that men are also becoming more involved in their child rearing, in like the child in bringing them up, which plays a big role in how society as well, like the late hours and how things evolve for the children as much as for you know, the economy, I guess. And then the last thing that you're mentioning is that grandparents, because they come from more of an educated background, or as well, like they have more the option as well to be bigger participants in their raising. So that's interesting. It's funny because I obviously come from very traditional family beliefs, I'd say, where it's like, you know, everything was like, you must stay together.
Yeah.
No.
No.
I can see this evolving more and more now that I'm in France as well. Like it's not uncommon to have families that are, and parents and dads that are more involved than I would say in the past, where it was more of a traditional female role. And then, where I think the grandparents have played a big role always, but you're right. Maybe the level of education just was different back then, because now everyone's.
And they're not there. They're not there to tell their children what to do.
Yeah.
They're there. They go, and their job, from what I see, is to love their grandchildren. You know, and if you sit with them, they will complain about how their daughters is doing with their children or whatever. But they will not complain in front of her. You know, they're not there for the couple. So in the traditional extended family, you know, where you put the daughter-in-law in the kitchen and you say, shut up, you know, you don't do that here, you know, anymore. So you let the couple, and then the couple, they know, I mean, you have to love your children. Now, if you don't love each other anymore, respect each other, you know, because and there is more knowledge about the result of your attitude toward your children, how you can destroy a child by your words from the beginning. So that knowledge, more and more people having them, because books have been written, and you know, so we have access to that knowledge. Studies from the 50s So much studies have been made. So now you have studies that are over 40 decades. So I would say, read some books. And I mean, if you're a woman and you have children and you have not read a book about how to raise a child and the importance of your words toward that child, then I don't know how you're going to educate. There is no school for parents in this world,
Yeah,
like let's say before we make a child, we would need to have a diploma, and say, well, I've gone to school and I've learned. Here's my diploma.
Yeah.
I know that I can destroy a child, and I
it's
know
true.
I can. Yeah,
it's true.
I mean, maybe it's the first thing we should know, that when we bring a child to life, is that we can destroy that child.
It's true. We both can raise him or destroy the little person inside of them. It's very true, and that's such a beautiful note to end on, actually, because I want to just part with a few your last words of wisdom in terms of like, what is one in the realm of family, or what is one thing you would encourage women to do for themselves?
Well, I would say go with your sisters. Don't forget to go with your sisters, and regroup with family, with women, because we all have the same pain, and we can speak about it with the same language and feel that we're not alone. And what the others think, forget about that. Okay, go for yourself. Really, and if you lack confidence in yourself, like that you should be a power superwoman and you cannot feel like you can become that or whatever, it's okay not to be a superwoman, and if you lack confidence, if you're a young woman and you lack confidence in yourself, then I would say cure it right away. It's kind of a sickness. It can become a sickness anyway. It's nearly a disease at one point, right? So I would say, do anything, but cure it. Say, okay, I lack confidence in myself. I will cure it. So please bring me everything on my road to make me understand how I'm going to cure that. And it will be cured. Everything will come. There is going to be a women's roundtable. There's going to be something coming along, and that will help you cure that. But be conscious that it's a disease in a way. It's an inner disease. Then I would say, for what I like the question. I like to ask the question: are you more human than your parents? Human in humanity, not the robot, not the monkey to the robot kind of human evolution, but are you more human than your parents? And I would say, answer that. And if your role as a mother, I talk to women who are parents, okay, is if you're, and even fathers, if your children are bigger than you, are taller than you, are more human than you, you have succeeded, right? Don't feel bad. Don't feel small because your child has gone to university and has become this big thing and specialist and has knowledge of it all, and you feel like you're so small because my father had a hard time to talk to his son because his son had gone to university, and he felt so complex that he would not talk to him, not because he didn't like him, because he didn't like himself, So I say, if you ever feel small because your children are bigger than you, no, that's the way it should be. That is human evolution. And your children, they will have to bring their children to be more human than them. What is human evolution if it is not to raise the next generation to be more human than the one before? Okay, I find that that's what we're here for, right?
Yeah. Wow, that was a powerful, powerful message. And it's true, because I've grown up, I've seen it, where it's true. We try and, we feel guilty. We feel that our kids, not me personally, because I don't have kids, but I've seen that, that dynamic. So that's beautiful. So I would love to ask you, how can people find you? Like how can they find more about you and learn more about your story? Because I know that the beginning was just a teaser, but I'm sure they'd love to learn more.
So I have a website which with my name, Hélène Tremblay. With my website, HélèneTremblay.ca. It's Hélène at HélèneTremblay.ca. And the website is HélèneTremblay.ca. And there's another one that's called Let's Meet on Earth. Let'sMeetOnEarth.org. And that's more the families I've lived with. It's more their stories. It's not my story. I never write about me when I write about the families. It's about their daily life. And so with the two websites, there's a link between one and the other. You can find me. And I'm easy to reach.
Yeah. I'll make sure to put them in the details as well, so people can just connect directly.
Yeah.
And Helen, it's been such a great chat with you. Thank you so much for shedding so much light and such a different perspective as well on the concept of family. I loved your definition of the 3 houses. I thought that was a beautiful expansion to something that is so, part of society. So I think it definitely opens our horizons, our perspectives, and our choices. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I really look forward to diving in deeper on other subjects with you and having you back. So thanks again for making this time to share this with us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And you are welcome in my life house.
Aww.
Yeah. I love you. Okay. Thank you so much.
You too.
Looking forward to talk again. Wonderful. Bye.
I'm just going to pause it, okay?